Call this meeting this Wednesday, May 29th, meeting of the Park Recreation Commission meeting to order. My name is Kelly Rosecrans. We'll just do a round the table introduction here, beginning at my left.
Derek Johnson.
Dick Payne. Chad Burrell, District 1.
Jim Borski, Streets.
Tom Anderson, Firefighter from Moore.
Marion Camp Council.
Sherry Wolasick, Rec Director.
Jim Shuchek.
Deb Sabaki.
Matt Heidman. And Susan B. Okay, thank you. Our first order of business here is to approve the minutes of the April 24th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Jim, seconded by Chad to approve the April 24th meetings. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Next order of business, election of officers, and I guess I don't run this one, so Matt or?
Yeah, I guess I can. We'll open up election of officers. First position is going to be commission chairman. We'll open the floor for nominations. Are there any nominations for commission chairman? Okay.
I'll nominate Kelly Rosecrans.
Second. Have a nomination and a second for Kelly Rosecrans. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll get a motion to close nominations and cast a unanimous vote for Kelly Rosecrans.
Also move.
Second. Okay, we have a second to close nominations and cast unanimous ballot for Kelly Rosecrans. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And I believe we need a vice chairman, correct? Okay. So we'll open nominations for the position of vice chairman. Are there any nominations for vice chairman? Are there any nominations for vice chairman?
I'll do it.
Chad? No.
Second.
Okay, so we have Chad as accept the nomination. We have a first and a second to have Chad as our vice chairman. We have a motion to close nominations and cast unanimous ballot for Chad as vice chairman for the Park and Rec Commission.
You need a
So
motion?
moved.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to elect Chad as the vice chairman of the Park and Rec Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the third nomination, I believe we took care of at the last minute, and that was an appointment to the Planning Commission. And I believe that was handled, and Kelly Rosecrans chose to take another term as the Planning Commission representative. So, and with that, we'll close nominations, and I guess you can take the meeting back over and move on.
Well, thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Chad. Okay, we move along to item number 4, update on a sculpture park. And unless Mike Hittner was dealing with that, so unless anybody knows anything more about the sculpture park, I have nothing to report on it. So I guess we'll have to forego that one for this trip here.
Put it back on the agenda for next week.
We might as well. Yeah, we've had it on the agenda just so he can give us
Just
a little
so
update.
we don't forget it.
Right, all right, so. Okay, next item, number 5, update on the riverbank. Matthew?
Between Jim's crew with the street department and the parks department, we pretty much completed what we feel we can do on the riverbank from the area of Locust Street to within approximately 30, 40 feet of the bridge out to the island. Some vegetation has been left to control erosion and hold the riverbank in place, and we feel we've taken as much as we can in that area. So for all intents and purposes at this point, we're done. Engineering is working on a grant for some riverbank stabilization and repair, and at that time, we'll probably be looking at some other changes in there, but as it sits right now, we're pretty much complete.
Okay, good. Any questions or of Matt?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what kind of riverbank stabilization you might be doing, or where it would be? Are you gonna fix the places that are being undercut up toward the bridges first, or how are you gonna go about that?
I think in this particular area, and I talked to Dave Lasso about it yesterday, what they're looking at doing is a retaining wall similar to what we have on the west side of the river along the walking trail, bike trail. And that would be up almost into the grass area, not down in the brush or down right on the normal high water mark of the river. So what they'd be doing essentially is moving up the riverbank almost to curb height and building a block retaining wall. The floodplain issues aren't a problem when you do that. They don't like you to put any structures in the floodplain, but if you go up and remove things from the floodplain and don't impede the water, they're okay with that. So at this point, that's what they're looking into, is the possibility of doing a block retaining wall most of the way up towards the top. You know, it would be down over the verge or the crest of the riverbank in some places, but not way down by the normal water line.
So a sidewalk too on the
No,
east side?
no plans for a walk or of any kind, just a block retaining wall.
Are you gonna raise the whole street level then?
Street level would stay the same. And the old river wall from there up to the old Elks Club and up to the dam for that matter, there's nothing planned for that yet. We know it's in tough shape. It's just a matter of coming up with a plan and coming up with a bunch of money to fix it. So that's still in the works. I guess I have a question though, and I missed most of the meetings discussing this riverbank brush cutting, and it's been kind of a contentious item. I know the Feeds have some concerns in the Meads, and neighbors on the other side of the road have concerns. Did the commission ever determine what the standard was going to be?
No, not,
So at this
Not to my
point, it's
recollection.
just left up to the staff to determine what's acceptable? Because we kind of have polar opposites down there. Some people want it cleared and some people want it left. Very few people have agreed on what is the perfect condition for that riverbank, and we're kind of looking for some guidance.
okay.
Maybe wouldn't hurt to have it on the agenda again next month. And in the meantime, you could go by and look at it and see what amount of brush has been left there. We've taken truckloads of brush out of there just in that 1 or 2 block stretch. We could take more. I mean, we left some of the smaller stuff that's down closer to the water line. The river was flowing pretty hard this week or last week when we were in there, and we didn't want to. Actually, some of the brush was underwater, stump, so you couldn't cut it off. But I guess a certain level of what's acceptable to everybody would be a good guideline for us.
Okay.
We personally think it's about where it should be now, but it wouldn't hurt to have your opinion on that. Maybe get the commission's blessing and say this is the general condition we want it to be. You know, we don't want to strip it bare of all underbrush and just leave the few trees that are there of good size, because eventually the bank will keep eroding and the curb will fall in the river.
What's holding the bank?
What's holding the rock, some of that stone in there now?
Root stumps.
Yeah.
Stumps,
Vegetation.
roots, and yeah.
So you can't really disturb that.
It's a jumbled mix of rock and concrete and, you know, different things down on that bank. It's really hard to cut. You never cut for more than an hour without wrecking a chainsaw chain or a brush saw blade. You know, it's a tough place to cut. And so far to this point, we haven't treated any of the stumps with chemicals to keep them from growing back. It's always been, you know, something we weren't willing to jump into, but at this point, I think we're gonna treat the stumps that we cut recently so they don't come back up with 10 suckers and get brushier than it was. But we need 2 dry days in a row so the chemical can have some effect. If it rains every other day, it won't do any good. But I guess at some point, we may have to rip-wrap that bank. That's kind of what the DNR and the people like to see now is rock put along there rather than a solid concrete wall or a steel retaining wall or tight sheeting or anything like that. They like rubble or riprap because it gives the water life somewhere to live. You know, I think that ultimately is the answer for stabilizing that bank.
There aren't any big enough holes or crevices or anything that river, the high water flow can undermine anything and create a sinkhole to
Well,
the east there.
it's not quite to the street yet, but there are a couple of washouts that are pretty close.
Okay.
But the river has to be up to like the 2010 level or 11 when we had the big flood to get up that high.
It's getting increasingly difficult to mow over there because you are having some erosion and sinkholes occurring, so mowing is getting to be a little bit of a challenge in some of those areas. And if we just put dirt in there, that's gone in no time, so.
Kelly, you have something?
Okay. Susan?
Some of the reason that you have those places that are getting close to the road is that there are ditches or streams that come from the neighborhood, and you don't know about them anymore because, you know, you'd have to go to some old maps to see those, but there's one that comes down right behind that big garage that is behind the Imperial House, for instance. And I think there's another one that's probably down near, not the street you're fixing, but the next street down, whatever
Witter?
that is.
Probably Witter
I
Street.
think so. So it's a combination, I think, of the river, but it's also these streams that are coming in.
You think they're like underground current, underground flow? We do
They've been
have,
there since the 1800s.
yeah, we put some drain tile in right below that Imperial House parking garage there because the water was constantly coming out of the banks there and running over the curb and creating ice and puddles and stuff in the spring, and we put some drain tile under the curb and it kind of dried that side of the street up, but you still do get water coming through there.
Could I make one more comment?
Sure.
And that is, when you cut that brush, we have a terrible problem on the island with garlic mustard. And when you open that up to sunlight, the garlic mustard just comes like crazy, and then we have to fight it on our side of the situation there. So we're reluctant to see that just clear cut and left to grow up in
Sure.
Brad?
I would say, and I think Jim would agree with me at this point, that there's really not any intention to clear cut that. We need some live vegetation in there to hold that bank. And engineering actually did recommend that we do leave vegetation in there, so.
Thank you.
It's quite a while ago that this came up, wasn't it?
Year
ago-
year ago this month.
Yeah, my memory is that we try to make it more compatible with the rest, not 100%, but, more. As I drove by there before, it was all, it was different from the rest. So the idea was to make it more compatible with the rest of the areas. That's not 100%, but,
Right. It's never gonna be the same because of the jumbled mess that
Right.
the shoreline is there. The trees and brush just grow up between those jagged rocks, and you're never gonna be able to mow it. You're never gonna be able to trim it right down to ground level. So it's always gonna be a little more rugged than the rest of the riverbanks, but I guess an acceptable amount of visibility from the Third Street side compared to, respecting their wish for some privacy on the island. It's kind of a balancing act, and I'd like to know where the central part is.
You talked about.
that's what I recall, when we were gonna find something in balance it off.
You said engineering is looking at a grant to
Correct.
fix that.
There's a
What-
summer intern working on that.
What dollar amount are,
I'm not aware of the dollar amount.
Yeah, I don't know either.
It would have to be fairly substantial.
I think all she's doing, or that person will be doing, is trying to design a system that works there throughout the course of the year, and then they'll come up with a budgetary number and estimate for us. This is what it would cost to do this. This is the best practice, try this and see where you get.
Well, then for now, then, I mean, as far as commissioners here, I mean, we can take a look at it, but I think the staff is doing everything that you need to do in order to, I mean, it's.
yeah, but the commission sets the standards on, the direction on where we'd like to see that riverbank and how it should look. To me, you see all across from the Tribune there, it all looks really nice, and you see from Locust to the Elks Cove looks really nice. And then you got that 100, 200 feet that's still not, to me, not up to standard, so that's my opinion. So I think Jim is right, we need to figure out what we'd like to see and come to a happy medium.
Well, I'd like to weigh in on this. I happened to catch part of it on TV, and again, I got my dander up a little bit, so I thought I would come down and have a discussion about it. We're really talking
Stand
about.
by, identify yourself, because this is being.
Sure, my name's Brandon Bruink. I live right on 3rd Street. My garage goes to the riverbank. And this issue's been on discussion for about a year now. And it's been very difficult to get any action on it. I wrote a letter that really detailed my concerns to the Finance and Property Committee. Mr. Whirl received a copy of it. I'm sure Matt and Jim probably have seen it as well. But we're over a year and we've seen really no resolution to this. Last summer at some point, somebody had allowed Jerry to go down and cut the brush himself. I'm not sure how that occurred, but we're allowing private citizens to go down and cut city land. I still haven't received an explanation on how that occurred or why it occurred. But if we're going to give Jerry, excuse me, Jerry, can I finish?
Sure, I just wanted to respond to that, but go ahead.
But if we're going to allow somebody else to cut it, I guess I'd like my opportunity to go down there and cut it as well. Unless there's some reason that one private citizen has more rights than another, I'm not aware of it.
If I could just respond to that then. My understanding from talking with the city is that I was aware that they were going to clear cut it. So I proposed to the city that since there were some locusts down there was buckthorn down there, there's a lot of weed trees and other things down there that I said, rather than clear cut it and have the bank erode, why wouldn't they allow me the opportunity to go in and selectively cut and take out all of the weed stuff, buckthorns primarily. But so I did that. And then the locust trees are really a weed tree also. but they're holding the bank, and they're the only thing that's there. So I trimmed those all up, and, where there were multiple, they had been cut before, so like you were saying, you hadn't treated them ever, and it's the same with the buckthorn. If you cut them off, then you get 50 shoots rather than one. So there were a lot of those locust trees that had done the same thing, and they, there were like 6, 8 stems of trees or trunks of trees. So I cut that away and tried to make it look, with what was there, as good as it could look, so that the city could see that and say, is this a good idea or is this a bad idea? So that's what I was trying to do, is just provide a demonstration plot. And it's clear that nobody has any more rights than anybody else. I thought I had an agreement that, they liked that, but then they came through and cut it this spring anyhow, so.
Did you have a written agreement?
No. It just was expressed as an opinion, and it is
Can I
not.
ask with who?
Just with Matt and the city crew that was working down there. They thought it looked nice. So, obviously, there's no rights gained or no extra special privileges. It was to be cut. I took a shot at it and said, well, here's an opportunity to look at this. And, it's the city's bank. They can do what they will. I mean, that's clear. But just a comment on that. Various people have come through and tried to do something with the bank over the years. And I think about 75 years ago, people came through there. And Susan, maybe you know the person who did it. I'm not aware, but
I think it was Steve Braza, wasn't it, who planted lilac?
lilacs were planted along the river to hold bank and to make it beautiful down there. And then during one of the mayoral stays in Howard, they came through and cut those all down. So I think a lot has been lost there. That's been, there have been attempts to make that bank nicer, and I think some things have been lost. My opinion is that a natural setting is better than a clear cut to the water setting. And particularly there where you've got, rocks the size of these chairs, you can't really mow in there. So it's a very difficult, riverbank to make look decent.
I would say one other thing, if I could, and that is, the reason that happens is that the WPA, or whoever came through in the 1930s and built the wall along the river, stopped right at your house.
Yeah,
I mean, that's where the wall stops. And then the rest of it is just rubble. There is no wall. So the change in vegetation is due to the fact that you have a wall. You could put grass behind it to that wall. And why they stopped there, I don't know, but the rest of it is just a natural rock shoreline.
I have
Nature
concerns
was.
that while you're doing this, are you covered with the insurance for the city, or you're doing city work?
No, I'm not doing city work.
Well, you're doing work on city property.
I am. I'm trespassing then.
Yeah. What happens if you would get hurt down there cutting or something?
I guess I'd take care of myself, wouldn't I?
I don't know why you got permission to do it.
I don't know that I did.
You just said you had a conversation with
I had
him.
a conversation, and he said, yeah,
We discussed it.
yeah.
Okay, so I guess I could just help myself by going down by the river and cutting it up and take my chances on whether it's trespassing or not. This just sounds rather complicated here.
I think Jerry was talking with the city staff during that period of time first off. So rather than just saying, can I just go down there and do it? I mean, it came about with Jerry talking apparently to the staff. So, just to clarify, just going and doing it is different than
It sounds
having a
like
conversation with the staff
not
and asking
quality
about
public
the cause.
policy. At the bottom line, it's not good public policy.
Well, I tell you what.
No, I agree.
They want brush, he wants it clear cut. The city doesn't know what they want. It's been a whole year. It's completely embarrassing. It's embarrassing to be on TV and let this one agenda item keep lingering. So we eventually gotta make a decision and get a little more information or get Sue involved or something and figure out what we wanna do.
Well, there has been information and there has been work done on there. We can pull the time cards and show you the time that we have invested in that riverbank and how much has been pulled out of there in the last year. It's not that nothing has been done.
Well,
A considerable amount of work has been done. And also, it's been studied by engineering, and they came out with an email, which I forwarded to everybody, stating that vegetation had to be left on that bank to preserve what's left. So to say nothing been done is totally inaccurate.
Jim?
I would just recommend you hold it over for another meeting and take the time to go down there and take a look at what's there and see if you think that's an acceptable amount of vegetation left there. If it comes to Matt's crew or my crew, we don't care. Just tell us what you want. You know, we'll provide that. We'll either cut or we'll leave it stand, whatever you like to see there. Doesn't make any difference to us.
I can say that I would appreciate that, because I put a whole heck of a lot of time and correspondence in trying to get some action on this issue. And here we are, well over a year after the first conversation occurred, talking about this. And it's disappointing. It really is disappointing that we haven't had action on it. And I can tell you what, there wasn't going to be any action on the riverbank until last November. There was an action. I called, and finally we got some action. I've documented every conversation I've had about this issue in a notebook, and I'd be happy to share that. So I've worked really hard at making communication to get this to happen. There hasn't been a real strong interest in wanting to make it happen. And when these various meetings occurred with Jerry, and I'm not sure, Susan, you're involved in it?
Well, sir, I don't,
I wasn't
Where
involved
do
in
you
those
live?
conversations.
where do you live?
I live on 3rd Street. My garage faces the back of the brush.
What is your address? What house do you live in?
I live in 610 3rd Street. I have the garage that faces the riverbank.
Okay, so you must have moved there recently. You're talking about where the Weymouths live?
That's correct.
Okay, just as a little bit of history, I mean, this problem is hundreds of years old. And a lot of people have come through here and done various things to improve it. Our foundation, for instance, purchased a study about 15 years ago to work on that side of the riverbank. It never came to fruition because there was no money, no city money to do it or to take care of it. There, like Jerry said, maybe 75 years ago, there was a planting of lilacs. Maybe 50 years ago, I was alive then, there was a planting of crabapple trees, which have gone their cycle. But, we've really worked hard, all of us, on improving the riverbank. In the 1980s, I was on a commission that put in the walking path on the west side of the river. So there's been an incredible amount of work done there, an incredible amount of effort from the city, from private people, from public grants to make things better there. We've been living there, or I've been living on the river since the 1970s and personally put in a lot of time. So it's not like we aren't aware that all of these situations occur, but we really have, been stewards of the land there since 1970. Personally.
And I appreciate your commitment to the land and your interest in it. And the brush that was down by the river, I was down there a couple weeks ago, and there was thorns this thick in that brush. That's not nice stuff. If you grab that stuff, you would prick your hands. There's thorns this thick. That's not beautiful stuff. That's not stuff that I would suggest that any study would suggest should stay there. But I think just bottom line is, I guess it's up to this commission to make a decision on how they want to move forward. And I think Jim's asking for that, and I would be in agreement that that's a good way to go and see what kind of regular policy there is. There seems to be some sort of policy about cutting riverbanks on the other side of the river and up to Locust Street on this side of the river. I think there should be a general practice on how it occurs. Now, obviously, that'll be up to you to decide how you want to do it, but I think something that's generally acceptable, that's uniform, would be appropriate.
I guess I would like, at this point, are you satisfied with this last cutting?
Well, I'd like to go down there and take a look at it.
Okay.
I haven't
Did you
walked
realize
down
the
there.
last cutting just took place a couple days ago?
Yes, I was aware of the
Okay.
last cutting. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and I drove down there. It was gone on weekend, so I haven't gotten a good look at it.
Because basically everything small on the top part of the bank is gone. And then they went down the slope, about 5 feet, 6 feet down the slope.
Okay.
And we couldn't have gotten much closer at that time with the water levels the way they were anyways. But if you drive by there now, there's not any spot from Locust Street to the bridge that you cannot see water.
Okay. Yeah. You did see those thorns down there.
Oh, we took out truckloads
We
of
more
that
than
stuff.
saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very tough going in there.
Any other questions? I just want to ask one thing. As far as like the riparian buffer thing, I'm not up on if anybody. What can you do along that riverbank in that natural setting? I know lakes have changed. I know they have.
You know, that's a unique stretch of the bank, because that's the only place where the bedrock comes right out to the water line. If you go up towards the Elks Club and everything, that doesn't have the bedrock issue. That's why it is so rugged right there. But there's things that can be done. You can pin walls into that bedrock. You can, depends on what you do. You can blast it out of there if you wanted to and build a wall just like they have on the other side.
But it takes money.
Lots of money.
Mm.
It's not gonna be cheap.
And that would be DNR regulated as well.
Lots of approvals and
Yeah.
permissions.
And you say there's some possibility of getting grants?
Well, right now they've got the intern working essentially for free, so they're using that opportunity to take some looks at it and see what costs might be. Whether or not there's grants to actually do the construction, I don't know.
Okay. Well, commissioners, what is your feeling? Do we want to set up time to meet there?
Well, I think if we all drive by and then we
And-
see it and then have it on the agenda next month.
Okay, that's what we'll do. Jerry?
Yeah, I think everything's been said here except what people would really want to see. I mean, look at two different opposites here have been characterized, and I'm not so certain that that's true. I think that access to the water is fundamental, and that's why I went through there. You couldn't walk down to the water because of the buckthorns that you're talking about. You have the garlic mustard, and you have the invasive bittersweet that's also down there, and it's kind of taking over everything. So if you can keep those things down, keep out the buckthorn, keep out the bittersweet, keep out the garlic mustard, and just trim up the good trees. Right down below you is just upstream is a bunch of river birch that's starting right at the shoreline. And there's some willows in there also that provide a natural setting. I don't know if all of that stuff needs to be taken out, but there are some decent trees there, and that can look quite nice, even though it can't be mowed. And you have to keep in mind that it never can be mowed until you would spend all that money and put a wall in there. So if you just limit it to the things that grow there that are good and trim those up and keep out the bad things, I think you've got the only workable solution. And as far as visibility to the river, I think that provides quite a bit of it. I mean, trimming out the trees and allowing, up there where I did trim out all of buckthorn, you can see the river quite easily. It's very visible. And if you can't trim out all the trees because you lose the riverbank, then you're stuck with something there. So anyhow, I have no objection to trimming out more stuff or making visibility possible. It's just that you want to save the riverbank, you want to make it accessible, and you want to keep it maintainable in some fashion. So,
Well, you say accessible. My understanding was it was the visibility issue that brought this up initially, wasn't it? That the people wanted to have the visibility to see the river, not all that brush. I don't know whether access, that's another situation if you're gonna have access.
well, the way, it's just a function of the same problem. If you've got all of that bittersweet that's viney and all of the buckthorn in there, you can't walk the shoreline. You can now.
Okay.
In fact, it's quite nice down there.
I'd have to go back in the minutes. I think the original intent was not to be able to walk the river, it was to have visibility, wasn't it? I don't know.
I think visibility is a concern.
Yeah.
Now, as Jerry talks about access, we know whether that's a concern or not. We know people go down there and fish.
There's a lot of people.
So it may be in the best interest to make it more accessible so people don't fall down there. But, I mean, but people do go down there and fish and, you know, see kids. And one other thing with that brush is, you know, I've seen kids down there drinking and smoking. You know, that brush offers some coverage of that sort of activity
You
too.
can't see it there, right?
Yeah, so if you make it a little more visible, you may eliminate some of that.
Anyhow, the point I was trying to make is I don't think we're completely on the opposite ends of it. I think just nice riverbank is what everybody's looking for.
I think that's the interest, yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Okay. Thank you, Brandon, Jerry, and Sue, Jim, Matt. We move along here to the request to hold the Ride of Remembrance on July 27th at the Firefighters Memorial. Tom?
Just a real simple response. Hopefully, every year that we've been this is the 10th year we're having a Ride of Remembrance. It's a motorcycle run. And we decided as a board, since it's only been here twice, or this would have been the second year, in its 10-year history, we voted to have it end up at the memorial every year, mainly because that's what they're riding for. It's really not what we consider a big issue there. We're going to have, really isn't something that's going to be that big this year because we canceled a section of it due to some problems that we had in that area, but we're going to try to get a directional run so that we can represent the whole state. So northern, southern, eastern, and western routes can come in and converge for 3-4 hours at the memorial, know what they're riding for, and then and move on. What I talked to Matt about was we have a certain amount of motorcycles come in. We're expecting maybe only 100 this year that would use Second Avenue to park them while we let them see the memorial and so forth. I did talk about if we have an overflow of motorcycles, if we use the pathway for about 3 or 4 hours, and we would allow or give them each a disc to place underneath their kickstand. We want to use the grass or anything like that, use the road, the pathway, and then exit them out that way also. We don't see it as a problem this year, but we'd like to continue this. It's something that we'd like to see the memorial grow that way, in the sense that people are donating to this. We've got some fundraisers coming up that that's where the interest is. That's where the money's going. So we want to show people what we're doing over there. That's what I'm asking for. The other thing, I'm talking tomorrow with a northern group out of Wausau and up toward Tomahawk. We might have something there for them to eat, but that'll be on the firefighters' grounds. Mm-hmm. We never allow any alcohol. Mm-hmm. Alcohol is not allowed on any of our rides or any of our fundraisers or anything like that. That's why we have a little bit of a problem with this. We had to cancel a section of the group of this ride. Mm-hmm. So that's as far as I can go with that part of it. But so we had to take care of that because we were an alcohol free. So that's my request. It isn't a huge thing, but I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of it. It's happening this year on July 27th. We're thinking next year, maybe a week earlier. We'd always let you know when it would happen. But it brings a lot of business and or people into the city.
Sure.
We want you to own the memorial a little bit. So.
I can appreciate that.
Sue, is there a procedure as far as having to, because there is an ordinance against having motor vehicles in the park?
So do you think you will have cycles on the
I don't think so
path
this year. I'm not.
Okay.
I can kind of let you know if we're not sure how many are coming up from the south We had to cancel the one from the southeast because of an issue. And that was against what we.
Would it maybe be all the way from,
It'd just be from Bowles, we figured just up to
That
the
first-
Memorial Grounds area.
oh, okay,
And we'd police it, in other words, we'd have signage up there or
Right.
something, and I'd make them aware that. We had this once before when they first came in, the first year, I think it was our 5th year or something. And they came in there, it was really nice, we had some flags there and they all drove in and then made them drive back out that way. But I was talking to Matt and I says, at first we were thinking about parking them if we could park them on the grass, but then I said, plan B is if it's raining, you don't want them on the grass, you want, so why don't you just go right to plan B anyway? Just give them a little disc to put underneath the kick-up stands. And 3 hours later, they pulled back out very nice. Like I said, there's no alcohol allowed. That's one of the things we have a problem with, so we don't believe it'll be an issue.
so, right, you could just suspend the motorized vehicle prohibition on the, part of the bike path
Yeah, we'll
from
protect that, so somebody can
the
still go
memorial
by and
to the
watch.
south, and if you would need
Very
it, if
careful
that's something
with
that
that.
you.
Would that have to go for the special event policy then?
I don't think so, I mean, you're not really requiring any services other than just, right, you don't need anything
It's,
Street closures.
else.
no,
No, and if you have your own little
we
barricade
want
or
this to
person.
be no street closures, ride.
And you're gonna take care of the bike path issues as far as closures
Yeah.
go?
If there's an overflow, we'll take care of, make sure that there's somebody there that watches. So that somebody can still use it. I mean, they can still, it's only when they're coming in, or if they're.
Yeah, you hit one bike and then.
Right.
All right, yeah.
I've seen the movies.
Yeah.
There's the progressive insurance.
Oh, that's it.
That's
Yeah,
all those Harleys over.
Yes, I did see that, yeah.
Well, so I'm wondering if you would A-frame it back where it turns back onto Second Avenue farther down, so you divert any bike traffic or whatever from coming off that last leg for those couple hours.
Oh, yeah, we can do something.
It might be in your best interest.
Why wouldn't you just have them park in the parking lot?
Well, up to this year, when I talked to Matt, we had like 450 bikes coming.
So you'd have overflow going on under the bike trail.
And I think at first we were thinking Second Avenue and then of course onto if we could use by the north part of the park. But, in thinking about it, I said, hey, if it's raining, you don't want to go on the grass.
Mhm.
So we have to think of that. So I said, well, just make it easier. Let's just always do that, just for that 3 hours. They come in probably around 3:30, something like that. They'll be gone by 6.
That Saturday? I'm sorry, 27th.
27th for this year.
It's a Saturday.
We'd let you know when it's gonna be every year. Make a change in the date.
Okay, any,
Thank you.
Sounds good, I'll make a motion to approve the request.
is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Chad, second by Jim to grant the request for the firefighters to have their ride of remembrance and use the portion of the trail, the park trail. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
One other thing, if I could say, just as an update, I was mentioning last year about taps at the park, that is in now, so it's kind of neat.
Sounds good, I hear it by my house.
Yeah.
It's not real.
No, it's not real.
Real nice.
We tested it a few times, checking it against Second Avenue. It's really kind of neat. So, thank you for that.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Move on to, just 2 seconds. Move on to bills. Chad?
Bills look good, so I'll make a motion to approve the bills.
Motion made by Chad. Is there a second?
I'll second
Derek? By Derek. To approve the bills, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Staff reports?
May 27th, Memorial Day, the zoo opened for the season. It was a little cooler, but we had a few visitors each day, so we're ready to go. I start my employee trainings for all my seasonal and summer staff May
28th, June 6th, June 12th. Hopefully we'll be ready to go. We're gonna start cleaning the pool on June 3rd and hopefully start filling it June 4th if the weather cooperates. And then we'll be set to open on June 12th at noon. I'm still currently looking for lifeguards. I've had a few that have changed positions and taken employment elsewhere, so I'm working with Human Resources right now to hire a couple more. And I'm also in the process of hiring a new tennis instructor, and that's the instructor that I currently hired earlier in the season. So trying to get everything on board for when we kick off, which our programs start June 6th. And we started online registration for this year. Overall, things went very well. We had a couple minor quirks that we still need to work on and get going, but overall it went real well and was real receptive to the public. We still had a large percentage that did come into the walk-in being the first year. So hopefully things will get better. Also, this past month I got recertified to teach my instructors to be swim lesson instructors. So the person that used to teach it is long gone out of the area. So I got that all done and behind me. So it's never too old to learn. So busy getting ready for the summer.
Okay, great. I just wanted to bring up something at the last meeting. There was this carnival coming for Blossom and Bowls, and your program, you weren't here, and your programs, you're okay then with everything?
Actually, I think Dawn had kind of given me a heads up that they were going to be there, and she had asked me, Mary, do you have any programs over there? And I said, yes, I do, because they wanted to set up on Thursday night, and I have a Friday morning soccer program over at Witter Field. And so she gave me, and I think Matt gave me the name of the lady that was in charge, and I got a hold of her. And we actually met with the school district and Matt and I and a couple other people that were involved in it. And we met over there because we weren't sure where they were going to set up, but we've got that all ironed out and everything is good to go.
And that there's ball games that weekend, a tournament or something?
The Raptors happen to be out of town that weekend.
Legion has.
And Legion will be home.
Yeah, okay. All right, I just wanted to check.
Thank you.
Everybody is aware of everybody else's activities that
Yeah.
weekend, and it appears to be, it's going to be no problem.
They were real willing to work
Everybody was
around
willing to work
everybody,
together,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's worked out real well.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Matt.
Anybody have any questions on my report? There's a second one that I attached, just basically outlining our day that we spent in Chad's ward and what we found, and the fact that there's probably a considerable amount more work that needs to be done in there. We're hoping to get to that as soon as possible. We're a little short-handed right now, and with the pool opening and everything, it'll be a couple days yet, but we saw lots of work. There was cases where we had cables, tree limbs growing right around cable wires, and trees growing into attic vents, and all sorts of crazy stuff. So it was a good project, and looking forward to spending some more time over there. So
Looks nice, and the blocks you did cover, the residents really appreciate it. So
we tried to do sidewalk. We did a 3/6 down in all the boulevard trees, and then we also did the dead ends. Any trees that were on the dead ends, we tried to clean up. And like I said, it was a good project. So.
Saw quite a few tires.
My crew, the day I was there, that was strictly trees, and the weekend crew, that was pretty much garbage, tires, brush that people brought out to the curb, a little bit of everything, TVs, the computers.
I've never seen so many tires lined up on
Right.
that one street. There must have been 100 at least, sitting by the.
I believe what I heard was 2 tandem trucks full.
it was almost 3.5 by the time of the end of the day.
So
Great.
So the mosquitoes should be a little less this year.
Mhm.
Matt, in your report, you mentioned Robinson Park. What is the situation there? Do we need a long-term kind of plan of what we're gonna do there, fix that place up?
there's some things that need to be done.
Yeah.
I would say that, there's a couple things we need to do, both to increase the efficiency and to update a little bit.
Yeah.
That granite parking lot could use some work. it just, you constantly have stuff growing into it and then it just doesn't look nice. There's some paving work that needs to be done by the open shelter because there's a big drop off the one end. So when people are in there and they take a step, it's about a 4 or 5 inch drop. So that old asphalt needs to be taken up and it needs to be re-sloped and then repaved on that one end. Yeah, there's work that needs to be done. And I can certainly on this coming year, when we do our budget process, I can put some of those items in there. But it gets used a lot and, you know, I don't think it's something that we should kind of let deteriorate. I think we should stick a little money and try to keep it viable. So.
What has been done with the restrooms there?
Restroom wise, some of the fixtures have been updated, the lighting's been updated, they've been repainted. You know, they're pretty good. I mean, for a building of that age, everything's functional, it looks nice. The only problems we have, and we talked about in the past, is maybe going to electronic locks. We have more and more people that are in there when they shouldn't be in there, and that, you know, leads to problems with vandalism. So I think one of the things we should look at doing is going to electronic locks and having them lock automatically at the end of the park hours. So I think that'd be a good investment.
I see you're doing the repairs on the women's softball lights.
Yes.
Did you ever do anything with the field itself?
We did some fencing work for them.
What about the infield in that?
Infield, we haven't done anything with. Jamie hasn't been complaining about that. She complained about water issues around the concession stand when it rained, and we took care of some of that today. When it rains, there's standing water right in front of the window, so people have to walk up and they're standing in the water. So we're trying to take care of those, but she didn't indicate any problems with the infield. Her biggest concern was the outfield fence. The fence was all curled up and there was sharp edges, and we did a lot of work on that in the fall. So.
No, it's for the girls to play there. That field is nothing compared to what the boys play on.
You mean the men's versus the women's?
No, the little league
You're
boys.
talking Little League? Okay.
You know, the girls' baseball field there, softball field there, is nothing compared to what the Little League has.
You're talking at Meade?
Yeah.
The women's
No,
softball
Little
versus?
The Little League boys
Those
play.
are both boys.
Those are both boys diamonds though.
Yeah, but the girls' team field is nothing compared to them.
Oh.
You know, that field is terrible. That year we had, the girls had that national honors there or something. They stood out there in the pitcher's mound that was all crumbled, and it was a shame even to show it to them.
But that was at Meade?
At Robinson Park.
At Robinson Park, no.
Yeah.
Those are pretty pristine.
I'd say those fields have had quite a bit of work done to them and recently at Robbie.
But like Jim says, we should take a really look at the Robinson Park and bring it up to date.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
It's a nice area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does Risa play a lot of ball area besides tournaments?
No.
That's what I just recently have heard.
Yeah, the high school,
North Diamond is basically a practice field for them. South Diamond, they still schedule games on. Majority of their games are at Keller.
Yes.
And Assumption's playing there and
South Diamond, yeah.
yeah.
All right, that's it? Oh, okay, thank you, Matt. For your input. Anything else? Otherwise, Jim?
I just had 2 items, maybe could still fall under staff reports. Most of you are aware we're doing something to try to control the goose population in town. We have oiled their eggs this year again, but if you drive around the parks and look, we didn't get them all. There's a lot of young of the year being hatched already. Tentatively set to do some trapping of the geese in end of June, early July. That'll probably happen in the parks where they can walk up onto the banks. They're gonna try to do it at a time when they lose their flight feathers, so they need a low shoreline on city-owned property where we can do the trapping. Hopefully we'll get grant money from the state on that. I'm not sure yet. I don't know if it's available or not. We'll see. The other thing is there are still some conversations and discussions going on with the YMCA about a future pool or aquatic center. They're still working on their end of the feasibility and logistics of it. And at some point, I would think they'd come to the city and say, we're ready for you to participate in this. And I think at that point, then we'll come to the commission and say, here's their concept. To what level do we want to participate? I think Matt will tell you our pool's probably good for 3 years, and after that, all bets are off.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Jim. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, Jim, Chad.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ayes have it.
Thank you.